The backgrounds of half the CCP's top officials exposed. What does it mean? Afraid of following the Soviet Union's footsteps? China abolishes the Ministry of Civil Affairs. Expert, CCP is trying to apply Soviet political tricks to fool the US and its allies. After new research, WHO urges China's regime to publish data related to COVID-19's origin. The small island that the Chinese regime coverts could host US troops.
According to the top U.S. intelligence officials' assessment, the Chinese Communist Party has become increasingly pessimistic about U.S.-China relations, warning this will make Beijing prepare for a reluctant war. Moreover, in the CCP's new senior staffing, 2 of 4 new deputy prime ministers are from the military, which seems to send a particular signal. Doug Wade, chief of China Mission Group in the Defense Intelligence Agency, recently warned that the U.S. and China could enter an increasingly confrontational period. Beijing has many ways to show its assertiveness. At a symposium hosted by the Intelligence and National Security Alliance, Wade said when the CCP believes the U.S. is hindering its world leadership position, it will confront the U.S. in all areas, including diplomacy, information technology, economy, etc. He pointed out the CCP's actions in the South China Sea and its treatment of Taiwan showed this. Days before Wade's comments, top U.S. intelligence officials also warned the U.S. Congress to be wary of China's ambitions on the world stage. In addition, Shi Wangjishang pointed out that China's 2 new deputy prime ministers have military backgrounds. Jiang Guoqing joined Norinco Group after graduating with a master's degree in 2008. He was promoted to the group's general director. Another is Lu Guzhong. Although he did not have the same military experience as Jiang Guoqing, he studied military foundation knowledge at the East China University of Technology. Besides these 2, several military-related officials became Politburo members of the CCP's 20th National Congress last year. For example, Ma Xingrai, Xinjiang Secretary, and Yuan Jiejun, Chongqing Secretary, both worked in science, technology, and aerospace fields. Li Ganji, a Central Secretariat member, worked in China's Nuclear Safety Administration for many years. Zhang Yusha, who continued to serve as the military's commission vice chairman, he led his army in the China-Vietnam War during his early working years. Another newly elected military commission's vice chairman, He Weidong, served in Fujian during his early working years. He came from the anti-Taiwan frontline army and served as commander of the Eastern Theater Command. Among the new senior CCP personnel, the number of military-related officials is very prominent, something rarely seen in the past 20 years. When asked how far Xi and other top officials will go to ensure reunification with Taiwan, CIA Director William Burns answered, "I would never underestimate the ambition of the current Chinese leadership." China's Xinmin Evening News published an article on March 15 saying when Xi Jinping attended the CCP's high-level meeting with world political parties, he declared his new commitment and resolutely opposed all hegemony and power politics forms. However, Shi Wangjishang quoted some analysts saying that CCP often says to not forget the original intention and always keep the mission in mind. So what was the CCP's original intention and mission? Isn't it eliminating private ownership and overthrowing all existing social systems by violence as stated in the Communist Manifesto? So the CCP's current goal is still to compete for hegemony with the US. In a CNN article, Avril Haines, director of national intelligence, pointed out the Xi Jinping administration believes it will benefit most by preventing a spiraling of tensions and by preserving stability in its relationship with the United States. But despite that, the CCP is still preparing for a war which they don't want to fight. As Sina reported, the Chinese Communist Party announced the State Council Institutional Reform Plan at the 2 sessions. It established the new Finance Committee, Science and Technology Committee, and Social Work Department under the CCP's Central Committee. The changes were to continue directly controlling important areas and strengthen the CCP's centralized and unified leadership. However, the Ministry of Civil Affairs, previously in charge of national security and public security, did not appear in this reform plan. Before the 2 sessions, it was reported that the new Central Social Work Department would unify the functions of public security, immigration, household registration, transportation, counterterrorism, anti-spying, and even social organization management of the former Ministry of Civil Affairs. Fei Lianyong, the Federation for a Democratic China former president, believes it faced resistance because of the danger posed by China's Ministry of Civil Affairs' power was too great. He told Shi Wangjisheng the Ministry of Civil Affairs was reminiscent of a large number of people who were executed for unjust and wrongful convictions in the Mao Zedong period, causing extreme discontent. Shi Wangjisheng quoted famous commentator Chen Pokwang as saying the Ministry of Civil Affairs is a copy of the Soviet Union's KGB. It was not positively regarded externally and internally because the Ministry of Civil Affairs is so powerful, it can cause power struggles within Xi's faction and cause chaos. The CCP may have felt fear from the Soviets' lesson. The Soviet Union's Ministry of Civil Affairs had great power and killed people mercilessly, but with a sudden order, the Minister of Civil Affairs would be killed. The Soviet Union once executed 6 interior ministers. Although the Ministry of Civil Affairs was abolished, the newly created Central Social Work Department has integrated related functions within the National Public Proposal and Complaints Administration, the Ministry of Civil Affairs, the State Asset Management and Supervision Commission, and other departments to further strengthen the CCP leadership over all social work. In addition, the Central Social Work Department will also unify the CCP leadership of national industry associations and chambers of commerce and guide the party in the party-building work of non-public enterprises, new economic organizations, and new social organizations. Current affairs commentator Zhou Xiaowei analyzed how Xi Jinping broke the original State Council, further centralized his power, targeted monitoring, and guarded against challenges from the public, showing that Xi Jinping is highly insecure.
On March 7th, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's media system, reported that Foreign Minister Qin Gang stated that the CCP would practice the principle of peaceful coexistence. Writer Stu Zwerk commented that the CCP is trying to reapply the Soviet trick to anesthetize the US and its allies. According to Zwerk, who served 30 years in the US Navy in 1956, then Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev emphasized that Lenin's concept of peaceful coexistence would be the primary ideological basis of Soviet foreign policy. Zwerk added that Khrushchev promoted the Marxist rhetoric of peaceful coexistence to conceal the Soviets' true intention to export communism to the world. The writer, with extensive combat experience in the Western Pacific, believes the smiling mask worn by the CCP has cracks formed from human rights persecution against Tibetans, Uyghurs, Christianity, and the Falun Gong. These cracks show the lies and conspiracy of the CCP when it wants to use the old Soviet trick of peaceful coexistence. Zwerk cited Breitbart News, pointing out that Qin Gang was remarkably belligerent when he used heavy words to threaten the US after a CCP spy balloon was shot down by US jets. Zwerk said this is not an expression of peaceful coexistence. Zwerk also cited WSJ's report, showing that the belligerent attitude was also reflected in the words of CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping. In a speech to the party's Central Committee on March 6th, Xi attacked the US and the EU, saying that the West presents unprecedented, severe challenges to China. Zwerk argued that Xi's bellicose statements contradict what the CCP wants to promote, peaceful coexistence. The contradiction between the words and deeds of the CCP is also seen in the fact that the force constantly expands and modernizes its military, and uses military power to intimidate and bully its neighbors.
Advisors from the World Health Organization urged China's regime to publish all information regarding the origins of COVID-19 after new research is briefly shared on international databases. According to WHO's statement on March 18th, earlier this year, Chinese scientists uploaded the SARS-CoV-2 virus's new sequences and additional genomic data based on samples taken from a live animal market in Wuhan to the GISED database. These new sequences indicate that raccoon dogs on the Wuhan market site may have become infected with the virus, eventually transmitting the virus to humans, reports WHO. The paper originally stated that raccoon dogs were not among the animals tested. The statement added that the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention then restricted access to the database, ostensibly to perform further data updates. Chinese health officials told WHO that the new data would be used to update a preprint study in 2022. This new study indicates that a small fraction of the 923 samples collected from the market in Wuhan and the wastewater system in and around the market tested positive for SARS-CoV-2. No virus was detected in 457 animal samples tested. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said on March 17th, these data do not provide a definitive answer to the question of how the pandemic began, but every piece of data is important in moving us closer to that answer. Ghebreyesus added, these data could have and should have been shared 3 years ago. We continue to call on China to be transparent in sharing data and to conduct the necessary investigations and share the results. WHO and other scientists have said they cannot rule out the possibility that SARS-CoV-2 originated in a laboratory in Wuhan. However, China's regime denies this possibility.
A small island that was preparing to host a smart city for the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, could now host US troops in their attempt to protect Taiwan and the entire region. This island is called Fuga, and we are not talking about a vacation spot, but rather about a point of great strategic value. On March 17th, The Guardian reported that this island, located in the extreme north of the Philippines, is being patrolled regularly by the local Coast Guard, and that a military base could be built there, which could also be manned by US troops. Why is this island so important? According to The Guardian, Fuga is less than 250 miles from Taiwan, and happens to be located in waters that connect the South China Sea with the Pacific Ocean. In other words, this is a critical area for the Philippines' defense. Moreover, this piece of land is part of Cagayan, one of the Philippine provinces identified as a possible site to host the US military, under the so-called Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. This US-Philippine pact allows for joint training, construction of temporary facilities, and storage of equipment and supplies. Local military analysts say Fuga offers excellent strategic value, because it has the topography to accommodate an airport and a seaport. The current Philippine president, Ferdinand Marcos, took a stand against the CCP's aggression in the South China Sea, and strengthened diplomatic and security ties with the US, Australia, and Japan. In February, the Philippines denounced dangerous Chinese Coast Guard maneuvers in the Spratly Islands, and accused Beijing of pointing a military-grade laser at a Philippine Coast Guard vessel. The Guardian report also highlights that Beijing was the first to spot the potential of this island. In 2019, China's Fengji Enterprise Corporation agreed with the private company Fuga Island Holdings to build a smart city there as part of a $2 billion project. According to a US-China Economic and Security Review Commission report, smart cities have a wide range of automated technologies or intelligent systems, such as facial recognition cameras. This idea of smart cities has raised some concern, because it has all the tools to monitor people's movements. The Philippine security establishment is concerned about the possibility of granting the CCP an observation post within the country's borders. The Smart City project did not materialize, but interestingly, other Beijing-funded projects were planned, such as manufacturing facilities, a high-tech industrial park, and the expansion of an airport. Now, the US may have a presence there to counter the threat of the CCP in the region.